I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, May the 27th, brought to you in part by Performance Livestock Analytics. Manage your feedlot anywhere, anytime with Performance Beef. Feeder futures sharply higher on Tuesday here to start out the week, as Monday was a holiday. And you think, well, why was that? The cattle on feed come out neutral, absolutely neutral. But, you know, the numbers are so skewed with the pandemic been going on and the way that it's changed the marketing of our cattle. It was kind of a relief to have a neutral cattle on feed with those placements, you know, estimated to be down there in the 70s, and we weren't sure if they were going to be that way, and then they turned out they were. Our marketings were way down there because we weren't able to get cattle processed, but they came out and they were just about what they had figured they would be, and your analysts did a really good job. Those analysts that they take the average of to come up with the estimates on that cattle on feed, they really did the industry a good job in giving us an idea of what that was going to be, and their models are working because, you know, as screwed up as things have been here the last couple of months, it'd be real easy to get off a long way. So that put some calmness over the industry there and helped your feeder cattle futures. But you know, our cattle are backed up. You know, finished cattle, cattle are getting heavier. A lot of cattle that haven't been able to get scheduled in for slaughter, and we know that. We know there's well over 1 million head of show list cattle that haven't been able to get scheduled, and they're getting heavy and they're getting backed up. That's leaving limited amount of empty pens there in the front part of the feedlot there for your feeder cattle. But people were still pretty excited and come out and bid higher on the board on the futures. Your futures were up the limit on your nearby, and in your sale barns they were excited about that too. Your fats were up some, but not enough to really justify how much better your feeder cattle were selling. But I think the moods were improved because of the bailout that you could sign up for on Tuesday here. Your coronavirus food assistance program enabled your ag producers to come in to your FSA office and sign up. And it's not just for cattle, it's for all classes of livestock and all kinds of agriculture. I mean, from fruits and vegetables to grains to everything, specialty crops, everything. $16 billion and another $3 billion for purchasing of products to try to help in that form or fashion. But a lot of jokes going around. I went to the sale on Tuesday and talked to a bunch of people, and I was texting back with people, and one of my contacts says, I can't get in, you know, a hold of anybody this morning. They're all standing in line for free cheese. And that wasn't the only one that I heard that was like that, but you knew that guys were going to get a rap on that, and some of the guys that got their stuff turned in were giving themselves a hard time, and some of the guys commenting on how well their cattle sold, the ones that they sold during the period there, the January 15th to April the 15th, commenting on how well they sold. The cattle did all right, still going to get a cheese check. So, you know, like I mentioned on an earlier visit, we kind of wish they'd used those funds to do something that would have helped us longer, and like I said, to teach us how to fish rather than to give us a fish. And, you know, we could have done something to supplement these guys that are trying to get some smaller packing plants off the ground to help in that form or fashion. Talked to several guys today that were saying that they're hearing about some plants going in, whether it's just a locker plant or maybe something a bit bigger than that. Of course, they're not going to get any major packing plants put in that are going to compete with the big boys, but tell you what, every little bit helps, and we just wish that we'd have had some of those funds to you know, benefit those people that were looking at that big capital expense to try to get something like that started. But that's what the industry needs as we go forward. We need more slaughter capacity to sell that product locally, and the consumers are wanting locally raised product too, and know where that come from, and they're ready to pay for it, and they don't have a problem with that. But let's look and see what happened with the board on your first day of the week's trade. On Tuesday, your June live cattle futures up $1.70 at 99.40. August up 192 at 99.25. You're going out from there up 190 to 237. August feeder cattle up the limit $4.50 at 133.30. September up 427 at 134.42. You're going out from there. They were up $3.40 to 407. So banner day to start the week with the first day of the futures of this week, and man, it's really set this market up on a positive note here. Look at your weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade in your 5-area feeding region, 66,200 head. Pretty decent movement there for not any more than we're moving through these packing plants, but at 66.2 compares to 85,900 last week and 85,200 the same week a year ago. But we've talked about how these packers are actually coming in and buying more cattle negotiated cash during this pandemic here. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get through talking about the market on the fed cattle from last week. Your live sales of steers and heifers last week ranged from 110 to 120. Your weighted average on live steers was 117.06. That was up $4.75. But your heifer weighted average was quite a bit higher than that, more than $1 higher than that. Your dressed steers and heifers range from 174 to 190 with a weighted average of 183.35 on your dressed steers. That was up $3.70. But your heifers were nearly $2. The weighted average on the dressed heifers nearly $2 higher than that. Nationwide negotiated cash, and you might note how much ground we're gaining as we're selling negotiated cash. Now I will grant you that the packers are coming out and they're trying to show how gracious they are by improving the bids, but at the same time, these guys are kind of remembering how to negotiate. And I've heard some guys that heard that there were 120 out there whenever they just got 115. They called up mad as hell and demanded that they get the same price as the pen next to them, and in most cases they were able to get that. So, some of this higher market is from your negotiated cash guys. So let's give them a little bit of credit that way. And when you got packers out there bidding on cattle and buying cattle, even though we're backed up a long ways, there's really not that many negotiated cash cattle available out there. So when you've got multiple packers coming in there looking for some of those cattle, the price goes up. Imagine that. Nationwide, 83,500 head negotiated cash cattle sold. Less than 5% of those for the 15 to 30 day delivery. So almost all of those 83,500, 95% or better of them selling for current delivery within the next 2 weeks. And you think, why in the world are they doing that? They've got all these formula cattle up here that they've already declared on paper that they would take. Those cattle are getting backed up. These formula lots, their formula partners, as they call them, their formula partners are getting pissed because they are not cleaning their cattle up, and they're going out here buying all these negotiated cattle from these smaller lots, these junk lots, these farmer feeders and the like that. Negotiated grid has launched during the pandemic here. Negotiated grid this past week was 66,300 head. It normally runs less than 5% of your movement. 66,300 head. A week ago, the prior week, it was 73,300 head. And a year ago, it was only 13,400 head. That's typical. 10 to 15,000 a week is typical for negotiated grid. Think, why are these packers coming out and buying these cattle negotiated, whether it's negotiated live or dressed or negotiated on the grid? Why in the world are they doing that? Because we are finding out that these formulas include a lot of things in there, and that's why these corporate feeders and your packers desperately do not want the layman cattlemen to find out what's in those formulas. They negotiate those formulas about once a year. There can be anything in there and including the horoscope and you know, the records on your favorite Big 12 football teams. So that could be in there, but we're finding out that the dressed beef prices are coming back around, and they're in some of those formulas, and likely some profit sharing from the Packers are in some of these formulas. But you guys are saying, huh? No, surely not. And you know, I've had some guys call me since I let that cat out of the bag. But I'm getting more confirmation and more confirmation of that all the time. I heard just this last week that a lot of these formula cattle, by the time they get all the kickers on there, including some of those roundabout all the way back around on your dressed beef, or how well the packing plants are actually doing, how much money they're making, some of these formula cattle are coming back and actually costing live over $1.50. So that's going to behoove your packers to go out and buy a lot of these cattle at 120. These negotiated cash guys that haven't seen multiple packers showing up at their feedlot for quite a while. Now you say, well, no, I guess we don't need this limited or this minimum negotiated cash trade mandated now, do we? No, we do. This is the kind of stuff that happens whenever you've got packers out there competing against each other for a small amount of negotiated cash cattle out there, and then your negotiator starts to ring a bell. Oh, this is how you do it. You dangle it out in front of them and then kind of hold it back like that old man with the fishing hat on that's holding the dollar up, and he kind of dangles it in front of people. That's the way you do it, and it's working now. It'll work if we mandate a minimum negotiated cash trade, because once this pandemic's over, once we get caught up on our slaughter, which will likely take the rest of this year and could take well into 2021, we're backed up so far. But once things get back to normal, we need to keep this negotiated cash trade going. The only way we're going to do it is by mandating it. I don't care if it's bringing government intervention in. You guys have been signing up for your cheese check. That's government intervention also. You know, your grading is government intervention. Your inspection is government intervention. All that stuff has to do with the government. And to get fair trade, level trading field, we got to mandate it, guys. Because voluntary, we know what that does. Nothing. Name one, kind of a program that we have going that has to do with cattle that's voluntary, that's doing anything. How's that voluntary animal ID program going? How's your voluntary country of origin labeling going? People don't do it if it's not mandated, okay? If you don't make it a rule, something they can get penalized if they don't do, they don't participate, because they would already be participating if they wanted to. Let's talk about, well, I wanted to tell you guys that last week we had around 150,000 cattle sell negotiated, either negotiated cash or negotiated grid. And about 133,000 cattle sell formula. Now, we had been running a lot different than that. We've been seeing our formulas make up around 80%, 75 to 80% of our sales, and that's how things are flip-flop. It just goes to show you these packers are going to serve themselves. They're going to take care of themselves. And you think, man, they've got these formula contracts. There's a lot of levity in those, guys. And they put those rules in there that say, you know, if we're dark or we're broke down or we're not able to run full tilt and we can't pick your cattle up, you know, no big deal. Well, that's what we're coming back to. So those formula contracts aren't worth the paper that they were written on, and your packers are abusing their formula partners out there. And I assume, well, probably not, but you would think that these formula partners, their corporate packers, would remember that when it comes time to negotiate those formulas the next time. But who knows? They'll probably just come in there with their hat in their hand and let them run over them like they've been doing. But I guess, you know, they have been kind of working on those guys to get some of these things into formulas that are ended up costing them so much money and bringing back so much. And a lot of these guys that are selling fat cattle right now are making good money on them, and then they're getting their cheese check to boot. But box beef cutout values Choice cuts on Tuesday afternoon, 385.49, down 11 1/4. They're not being able to hold it at $4, and likely they're okay with that if they're having to give some of that money up on their formula purchases and out of the feedlot. So they're thinking, hey, this deal's just going to have to come back down, and we're going to have to get something back to normal, and then we'll start taking advantage of the fact that we're not being able to get all these cattle moved. But select cuts 360.02, down 14.16. Huge movement on Tuesday of 222 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter, first day slaughter we've seen up well over 100,000, 106,000 on Tuesday. Kind of a disappointing holiday weekend there, but 106,000 on Tuesday. That's up 7,000 compared to last week, but down just 16,000 compared to the same week a year ago. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Tuesday at 127.05, up 43 cents. Look at some of your big sales. Ozarks Regional Stockyard, West Plains, Missouri, 4,600 head there. The feeder weights steady to $3 higher. Calves were a little bit mixed there, but you look at these feeder cattle here, 76 head, 683 pound steers in West Plains, bring $145. That's pretty darn good there. I went out to the new local sale here in the Texas Panhandle. Amarillo West Stockyards in Wildorado, Texas, or about 20 miles west of Amarillo on I-40 there, just on past the Cadillac Ranch and on past Bushland. But top-notch facility out there. First really good test. Load lots of yearlings there that I've seen, and the buyers were in the seats, guys. They had buyers from all your major feedlots and a lot of independent guys too, but pretty good test of cattle there. And I went out there and put one of our national beef wire TVs in that sale barn there, and we're pulling information from there, as you can see, on these load lots, and giving them a little bit of promotion there. And if you guys have a sale barn and you want to be included on the National Beef Wire TV, if you want me to talk about if you want some promotion, as we got these beef wire TVs in a lot of procurement centers and all over the country, just get a hold of us here. It doesn't cost anything, and we'll put your big strings of cattle right on there, and we filter out the lumps and bumps and the unmerchanables to keep it from looking bad on some individual singles and stuff like that. But let's talk about the top quote that I saw. First, I want to say, do not forget Western Video Market Sale, Thursday the 28th here. Thursday morning, 9 o'clock in the morning Pacific, 11 o'clock in the morning Central. Got some awful good cattle on there. Western Video Market's internet sale on Thursday. It's out of Shasta Livestock, Cottonwood, California, but you can get right on dvauction.com or get on to Western Video Market there. WVM Cattle, I believe, is their website, and you can get right onto that console and view and bid that sale right there. Now, your top quote for the day comes out of Kimball Livestock Exchange in Kimball, South Dakota. Christy Christensen, she sent me a text on these cattle letting me know that it was all one deal, but they offered them in individual loads, and you can see that as the way I pulled them out of Cattle Market Central there. But put together, there were 4 loads of these steers, all one deal, 333 head, 809 pound feeder steers, bring $140.50, and that's your feeder flash for Wednesday.